Hello and thanks for joining us on the news on NTA International. I am Dennis Adigunloye. Let's begin with the headlines. ECOWAS Parliament's 2025 second ordinary session ends with hopes for stronger outcomes in 2026. Uncertainty in global shea market as major producers impose bans on raw nut exports. And NEMA gears up for enhanced disaster management and resilience. The United Nations has raised alarm over the escalating risk of a wider regional war in Africa's Great Lakes area and warns that recent developments pose a serious risk of the progressive fragmentation of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, threatening its unity, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. Ilyasu Aliakubu has details.
Si ces avancées diplomatiques récentes ont suscité un espoir réel,
the United Nations peacekeeping chief raised alarms over the escalating conflict in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, warning of a potential regional conflagration and the risks of the country's fragmentation amidst rapid territorial gains by Rwandan-backed M23 rebels. Jean-Pierre Lacrosse, Under Secretary General for Peace Operations, told the UN Security Council, described the conflict as increasingly regionalized, pointing to the direct or indirect involvement of armed forces and groups from neighboring countries, as well as the cross-border movements of displaced populations and combatants. Lacrosse also highlighted grave risks to Congo's sovereignty. Recent development pose a serious risk of the progressive fragmentation of the Democratic Republic of Congo, particularly its eastern part. The warnings came as M23 fighters consolidated control over the strategic lakeside city of Uvira in South Kivu province on Friday, with residents reporting that the rebels forced locals to sweep streets as part of community work obligations in areas under their control. The advance has displaced hundreds of thousands and killed more than 400 civilians since early December.
Additionally, we have credible reports of increased use of suicide drones, increased use of artillery by both M23 and Rwanda, including strikes into Burundi.
The escalation undermines a U.S.-brokered peace accord signed last week between Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi and Rwandan President Paul Kagame in Washington, which aimed to de-escalate tensions but did not directly include M23. Ilyasu Aliakubu, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the United Nations says it will review the progress of its refugee policies next week amid escalating armed conflicts, the politicization of asylum laws, and severe cuts to international aid. Governments, civil society organizations, the private sector, academics, and refugees will gather to assess recent advancements and propose new solutions at the Global Refugee Forum Progress Review set for 15th to 17th December in Geneva. The number of forcibly displaced people worldwide stood at 117.3 million as of mid-2025, the first meaningful decline in over a decade, down from a record 123.2 million at the end of 2024. The 2025 second ordinary session of the ECOWAS Parliament has ended in Abuja, with member states expressing hope for 2026 to be a year of unity, deep cooperation, and progress for the West African sub-region. Mohamed Rabiu Ali reports that the session, which coincides with the 25th anniversary of the Parliament, was engaging.
2 weeks of robust debate is now over. Reports of the Committee on Public Accounts, Parliamentary Oversight, mission to raise awareness on psychoactive substance abuse in the ECOWAS region, and the resolution on the political situation in Benin were adopted. Speaker Maimunatu Ibrahima expressed ECOWAS Parliament's readiness to support the legitimate and constitutional government of Benin, as the authority of heads of state and government are deeply committed to protect constitutional order.
It's not just about recommendation and let it be on table to be dusted. We want the implementation, because if we are together, this togetherness that we showed during the visit of the delegation, it sent a signal that we are together, Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, because if we sneeze, they will catch the cold. If they sneeze, we also will catch the cold.
That the matter will be brought before the Bureau for us to take an action. Even if we need, Madam Speaker, and the Bureau to go to Bissau for a parliamentary diplomacy, we'll do that.
I'd like to thank you also for all your opinions and the debates, which reassure me that we are all committed to peace, democracy, and regional integration.
At this point, the 2025 second ordinary session was adjourned in Abuja. Muhammad Rabiu Ali, NTA News.
Namibia's Minister of Urban and Rural Development, James Sankwasa, has commended Nigeria's Renewed Hope housing program and applauded the National Housing Fund scheme, describing them as impactful policy instruments for expanding affordable housing and deepening home ownership. Sankwasa made these remarks during a courtesy visit to the Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Ahmed Musa Dangiwa, at his office in Abuja. Francis Udojo has details.
The Namibian minister, whose portfolio oversees regional and local governance as well as housing development, noted that his ministry plays a central role in tackling housing deficits and improving living conditions across Namibia. He informed his host that he was in Nigeria to participate in the 2025 African Housing Awards and considered it important to engage the ministry to exchange ideas and share experiences on affordable housing delivery. Sankwasa explains that Namibia's housing challenge is largely driven by the rapid growth of informal settlements. He stated that the Namibian government has adopted a multi-pronged approach to address this, including free land titling for low-income citizens, structured identification of development zones, and the cultivation of strong partnerships with development partners. According to him, development partners are deliberately integrated into Namibia's national housing framework and budgetary planning, noting that while partners support housing construction, the government of the Republic of Namibia assumes responsibility for the provision of critical infrastructure to make such developments sustainable and livable. Responding, the Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Ahmed Musa Dangiwa, welcomed the Namibian delegation and reaffirmed Nigeria's commitment to South-South cooperation and knowledge sharing in the housing and urban development sector. Dangiwa highlighted the Renewed Hope housing program as a flagship intervention of President Bola Tinubu, designed to shift housing delivery in Nigeria from isolated projects to a coordinated national program spanning Renewed Hope cities, Renewed Hope estates, social housing, urban renewal, and slum upgrade. The minister also underscored the strategic importance of the National Housing Fund (NHF) as a long-standing and sustainable housing finance mechanism that pools long-term funds to support affordable mortgages for Nigerian workers, while strengthening institutional delivery through agencies such as the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria and the Federal Housing Authority. He assured the Namibian minister of the ministry's readiness to share technical knowledge, policy frameworks, and implementation experience, noting that Africa's housing challenge requires homegrown solutions, regional collaboration, and strong public-private partnerships. Francis Udojo, NTA News.
To agriculture now, the world's largest producers and suppliers of shea nuts have suspended the export of raw produce without adding value to it. The situation has created a major change in the global demand and supply of the nuts and their byproducts. In this report, Musa Baba Aliou takes a look at the situation in Côte d'Ivoire, one of the world's leading producers of shea nuts.
This is Nasioko Badara, where more than 152,000 women make a living from shea through natural production. The women in their dozens toiled under a blazing sun to make butter. Sacks of nuts were stacked in the yard, while mills were non-stop, churning out dense chocolate-colored shea paste.
Last year, we sold a kilo of shea butter for between 4,000 and 4,500 sefa. That's something we have never seen in our lives.
She lamented the lack of market outlets for their products. When it's expensive, the market is low, said Tanim Sulier, who has been selling shea butter for 10 years. In a country where shea production is modest and largely based in the north, sellers made up for the shortfall by sourcing from Mali and Burkina Faso. But last year, the neighboring countries among the world's top shea crop producers halted shea nut exports to boost local production. In January, Côte d'Ivoire also suspended exports of its nuts to secure supply for its own industry. Togo and Nigeria have also frozen raw nut export. Ghana, for its part, plans a gradual ban starting in 2026. Those decisions, combined with strong global demand driven by shea butter's use as a cheaper alternative to cocoa butter, have left the West African market under strain. The shea tree is a symbol of the dry African savanna. Its fruit contains a nut that women collect and sell raw or process into butter for skincare or food industry. Musa Baba Aliou, NTA News.
Meanwhile, West Africa is taking a fresh look at how cattle and other livestock move across borders as leaders and experts in Nigeria push for safer, more organized systems that reduce conflict and improve livelihoods. Justin Bemunyi reports.
In many parts of West Africa, livestock is more than an economic asset. It is the lifeline of millions of families. But the traditional movement of animals from place to place often faces challenges: insecurity, disease outbreaks, blocked routes, and clashes between farmers and herders. In Nigeria, working with the African Union's Animal Resources Agency, AU-IBA, the African Union Inter-African Bureau for Animal Resources, a new conversation is emerging on how to fix these long-standing issues.
The ECOWAS Transhumance Protocol and its 2018 regulation on transhuman form one of the continent's most advanced legal foundation for regulated cross-border mobility. Yet, despite this progress, implementation remains uneven.
The goal is simple and people-centered: make livestock movement safer, more predictable, and more beneficial for everyday Nigerians and West Africans who depend on it. Nigeria is already rolling out stronger livestock policies, improving animal health services, establishing clearer grazing routes, and boosting market systems so herders and traders can earn more and worry less.
I wish to assure you that Nigeria is prepared to learn, collaborate, and team up with other countries in West Africa, in West and Central Africa in particular, and the entire African continent at large for shared growth and prosperity.
Regional partners are also sharing ideas. From East Africa, IGAD, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, has introduced digital animal tracking and coordinated disease control at borders. Experts say adapting these innovations could help West Africa reduce tensions, protect animals, and open new economic opportunities across the region. The message from Abuja is clear. When animals move safely, communities prosper. When borders cooperate, conflicts reduce. And when markets are connected, the entire region becomes stronger. By rethinking pastoral mobility, West Africa hopes to turn an age-old practice into a modern engine of peace, stability, and shared growth. Justin Bemunyi, NTA News.
This is the news on NTA International. We'll take a break. More reports in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Nigeria's maturing energy sector is gaining renewed clarity and courage under President Bola Tinubu's leadership as the government demonstrates strong political will to transform environmental challenges into economic opportunities. Lydia Sampson reports that the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission officially handed over flare site access permits to 28 successful companies, marking a deliberate step in harnessing wasted gas resources.
Through the Nigerian gas flare commercialization program, flared gas is being captured and converted into wealth, energy assets and job creation avenues. For the Commission Chief Executive Benga Komolafe, the initiative aligns with Nigeria's energy transition plan, driving gas utilization, clean energy good, as well as investment in the sector.
The program is expected to attract up to $2 billion in investment. More than 100,000 direct and indirect jobs are projected to be created. About 170,000 metric tons of LPG are estimated to be produced annually, enabling clean energy access for approximately 1.4 million households.
Analysts say the initiative underscores President Tinubu's commitment to cleaner energy growth and sustainable resource management. With decisive action on gas flare reduction, Nigeria is not only protecting the environment, but also strengthening energy security and attracting new investment into the growing gas value chain. In Abuja, Lydia Sampson, NTA News.
To health matters now. Antimicrobial resistance remains a growing threat to Nigeria's health security, claiming lives and weakening healthcare progress. As the Commonwealth Partnerships for Antimicrobial Stewardship program winds down, stakeholders are in Abuja to discuss practical strategies for sustaining the country's AMR gains. Uche Ugochukwu reports.
I started experiencing systems of fever, shivering, and the whole thing was disorganized.
What began as a simple kidney stone for Moshood Lawal, a retired civil servant and pharmacist, ended in antimicrobial resistance after multiple rounds of treatments.
There was a urinary tract infection as a result of the procedure carried out 48 hours earlier. And it was resistant to the first drug, to the second drug, to the third drug that laboratory also showed it was sensitive to.
Lawal's experience reflects a growing concern about AMR in Nigeria, a challenge experts say is already undermining routine treatment, increasing hospital bills and putting countless lives at risk.
We engaged the community pharmacist going outside the hospital where bulk of antibiotics are being consumed.
Through the CPANS program, Nigeria has strengthened antimicrobial stewardship by training pharmacists, improving prescribing practices, and raising awareness on the dangers of misuse.
And then strengthen that country ownership to ensure that this hard work is embedded in the national mechanism and the national priorities.
The Commonwealth Partnerships for Antimicrobial Stewardship, CPANS for short, which is one of the interventions to curb antimicrobial resistance in the country, just ended. And so these experts are gathered to brainstorm on how to sustain the progress made.
What are we thinking about sustainability? Of course, once you say sustainability, everybody talks about money. But for me, it's not just money. Even when you give money, produce money, and people have no interest, people are not motivated enough, people are not committed to want the program to continue, it will come to naught.
They emphasize that AMR is not just a health issue, but a major development and economic threat that demands sustained multi-sectoral collaboration. Uche Ugochukwu, NTA News.
In the meantime, the National Emergency Management Agency has introduced a monthly fitness walk and other exercises to help staff stay fit while managing emergency tasks. The road walk, led by the Director General of NEMA, Zubaida Umar, cutting across some major streets of Abuja, is aimed at reawakening the alertness of the disaster managers in a rescue mission. Ilyasu Aliyakubu reports.
NEMA's Director General said physical fitness, mental alertness and good blood circulation are essential for building consistency, resilience and determination given the demanding nature of disaster management. She emphasized that given the unpredictable nature of disasters, it is crucial for disaster managers to stay fit and prepared for any eventuality.
In line with our disaster risk reduction strategies, this is part of it, where we all come out, we make sure that we're all fit so that we can respond to any emergency that may come our way. It's also our way of engaging Nigerians, for them to know to be very careful. We're in December, we all know what happens during Ember months, from driving to airplanes, to know that NEMA is there for each and every Nigerian.
The Director of Search and Rescue of the agency, Air Commodore Bature Usman, emphasized the need for all staff of the agency to maintain the physical alertness to effectively manage situations at all times.
This exercise will not just end today. We have drawn up a program. We'll be having similar exercises.
Other staff commended the DG NEMA for the foresight and pledged their commitment in actualizing the agency's mandate.
I feel really healthy, very energetic and very fit.
And as an emergency manager, so we need to be fit and physically, both mentally and physically.
The monthly physical exercise is expected to be carried out in all offices of the agency across the country. In Abuja, Ilyasu Aliyakubu, NTA News.
Now, a capacity building training for teachers under the Nigerian Union of Teachers aimed at strengthening the leadership skills of its executives and advancing the welfare of teachers has been concluded. The training initiative focused on enhancing the capacity of NUT leaders to effectively advocate for improved teachers' welfare, clear career pathways and fair remuneration. Designed to equip participants with strategic advocacy, negotiation and campaign skills, the program prepared union leaders to champion the professional and economic interests of teachers. It also aims to strengthen their ability to engage government institutions and relevant agencies at both national and subnational levels. By deepening their understanding of policy processes and improving communication strategies, the training is expected to foster more constructive dialogue between the union and authorities. Stakeholders believe the initiative will encourage collective action across the education sector, helping to drive systemic reforms that promote better working conditions, continuous professional development, and a more resilient teacher workforce.
Basic education program in the country to address the concerns about children affected by crisis in different locations in the country. But then, what about those who will teach them? How do we increase the level of professionalism? How do we support them to make progress in their career? And how do we also ensure that they feel fulfilled enough, they feel appreciated enough, and they are rewarded enough for them to stay committed to that profession?
You know, unionism before was banging of tables and what have you, and issues of strikes and what have you. Now we have to use the current means of dialoguing with government with our facts and figures. And when we are able to do that, government has no alternative than to do what is the needful.
Humanitarians who have been identified for their dedication to uplifting the vulnerable in the northern region have been recognized. Ruth Aguele reports that the Director General of the NTA, Salihu Abdulhamid Dembos, was among those awarded for his contribution to humanity by the Arewa Humanitarian Magazine Awards and Summit 2025 with the theme Strengthening Humanitarian Leadership and Grassroots Impact in Northern Nigeria.
Little drops of water, they say, make a mighty ocean. And for these humanitarian actors from the northern region who have consistently contributed to humanity are on the spotlight for their dedication. It was a moment to show appreciation and recognize their contributions towards driving national change and making an impact in the lives of vulnerable groups across the northern region of the country. Among the individuals recognized by the Arewa Humanitarian Magazine Awards is the Director General of the Nigerian Television Authority, Salihu Abdulhamid Dambas, for his impactful leadership and commitment in redefining broadcasting and his legacies in his community.
Yeah, the DG is an iconic personality, and his humanity is what lured a lot of youth groups and other well-meaning Nigerians into his tutelage. But I want to tell you that his outreach is not only within his own state of origin or areas of settlement, but it has cut across the entire country.
When we come together, when we support one another, that's when the potentials of the younger ones can be totally harnessed.
By celebrating them, honoring them, and also amplifying their voice, we're going to encourage others out there to do the same. Because when it comes to humanitarian journey, it's a collective journey. It's not an individual something.
Beyond the recognitions, it was also a platform for key players to explore the potential in the northern region, with focus on 3 thematic areas: empowerment of the northern girl child through education, leveraging artificial intelligence in redefining youth leadership, and promoting skills to drive self-reliance and economic growth in the region. In Abuja, Ruth Aguela, NTA News.
And this is where we end the news at this time on NTA International. Thank you for watching. I am Dennis Adigunloye.